So the history of Fitch-Rona, we actually celebrated 40 years last year, starting back in October or September of 1977, I believe it was. Started out with some space with the original Badger Prairie just north of town here in a garage in an apartment by some maintenance areas that was donated by the county. So that's the first space we occupied. From there moved up to, again, a donated space, a house up off of the original Verona Road back when it wasn't the monster of a highway that it is today. And actually stayed in that space till 1993. As our own entity, just an EMS service, as we still are today as a district. In 1993, we actually moved into the now old Fitchburg Fire Station number 2 off of King James Way, which we since moved out of last year. So that was actually our first kind of space where we were able to work with the fire department in a same communal space and open sleeping quarters we had. But we work so closely with the fire department in almost everything we do, and that relationship has grown even to this day. So moving into that fire station and stayed there with still a volunteer service for many years until 2001 when we became a career service, running one ambulance full-time out of that station. Grew into another ambulance, the importance of moving an ambulance down to Verona to help care for all of our district. Started just staffing a 12-hour day ambulance down here in the Verona, the original Verona station that had no sleeping quarters. So it was just moving that ambulance down here during the day. Putting a priority on getting an ambulance 24 hours a day down here in Verona, we actually rented some space in the industrial park off of Venture Court. And what was originally supposed to be 2 to 3 years in that station before the Verona Fire Station grew, turned into, I believe, about 8 or 9 years before what we are in now came to fruition here just about 3 years ago. So now actually in both communities, up in the new Fitchburg Fire Station number 2 on Marketplace and the Verona Fire Station down here, moving into this station finally offered us the opportunity to co-locate with our fire partners who we work with on a day-to-day basis. They've absolutely improved the training. They see what we do, we see what they do, and we can work in conjunction together, like I said, in a training environment, as well as that camaraderie that's made in that day room, that space that we spend. Like I said, about a third of your year is spent here with the same people. So out here in Verona is where we actually have the administration offices for Fitch-Rona EMS. We did some restructuring at the beginning of this year, so we have a full-time chief, which is myself, down here, and then I have an assistant chief or a deputy chief, Jeff Dostalik. So the two of us are here. Essentially, we work on Monday through Friday, early mornings. I start at 6, he starts about 6:30. We're here till the middle of the afternoon, but that's what we're down here. Help coordinating trainings, meeting with city administrators, kind of that administrative role from what we do. We actually also have a response car down here that the two of us can use. Reason it's down here in Verona is because if you think of the resources for fire and EMS in Dane County, it's coming from the Madison side, town of Madison side. They can actually get ambulances to assist a little sooner than we can out here in the Verona. So if our Verona ambulance is out and we're waiting for a neighboring community or even our Fitchburg ambulance to respond in, it's an extended response time. So Jeff and I are able to hop in that response car and go out to Epic or anywhere in the Verona Township and first respond and actually get EMS paramedic personnel to a scene significantly quicker than if we were to put those administrative offices up in Fitchburg. So one of the things that we were able to put in for here at the Verona station was actually some extra space for a training area. And what you see behind me here is we were able to spec out essentially a mock ambulance. It is just about the same dimensions as the back of a real ambulance. What we use this space for is to store most of our training area, our training equipment, as well as we have some mannequins here that we were able to purchase with some additional training dollars that we are essentially simulators. They'll provide some vital signs for us. There's a vital signs monitor. We can do some interactive skills with them. At least once a year, our medical director comes in and meets with all of our paramedics virtually on a one-on-one and runs them through some scenarios that are some pretty challenging scenarios, kind of challenges our medics to think outside some traditional assessment skills. We're actually able to do then to these mannequins things we can't practice on our live patients. Some things we kind of put them in these things we call high risk, low frequency skills. One of the things paramedics are taught in class is actually to do surgical airways. Some significant facial trauma, we're not able to breathe. Grab a scalpel and a tube and start cutting open a hole in the throat. Don't get to practice that knock on wood, but we don't see those things hopefully ever in a career, but it's something we need to be proficient in. That's what training center has allowed us to do, is be able to do that at least once a year, make sure that we're proficient in it, grabbing some of that equipment we don't touch very often, and do that here and stay proficient in these skills. Not a lot of space that we have outside of a normal station to do this in that's dedicated for us. One of the facilities we have here at the station, we actually have it up in our Fitchburg station as well, is actually a very large workout area. Our crews are allowed to work out on duty as long as it doesn't delay them to responding to calls, which it's right downstairs. But as you can imagine, this is a pretty physically demanding job, right? We're not going into houses and doing firefighting, but we're constantly doing some lifting, bending, moving, carrying patients, carrying lots of equipment, crawling into some tight spots. So health and wellness is actually very important to us as we're working with the fire departments, especially up in Fitchburg, to develop a very comprehensive health and wellness program for our paramedics. This is part of it. We have cardiovascular equipment, so the treadmills, they can walk, they can lift weights, working on just lots of projects to maintain health and wellness, good back lifting, back care. So these are the sleeping quarters for our medics down here in Verona. Some pretty nice quarters. So each room is equipped with a bed and a nightstand, so fairly minimal. All of our medics bring their own bedding. We do have laundry facilities here, so they're able to wash it if they need to. If you can think about it, they live here. They do 24-hour shifts. They're always working 2 days a week based on their schedule they're working. So, big picture, a third of their life they actually spend living here at the station. So we try to make it as comfortable as they can with the day room facilities and their own private bedrooms. Before we came here from Fitchburg, back even when I started here, it was an open bay. We had 6 people sleeping in one open bay, no privacy whatsoever. I moved to some curtains, but we've kind of grown now to everybody has their own room that they can kind of escape to and do their own thing. Each room actually has an alerting system in it. It's specific on this side towards the EMS side, so fire gets their fire calls. We don't get woken up by fire calls in the middle of the night unless we need to go to them. Our tones just go off. The pager goes off overhead. It's kind of actually a nice voice that wakes them up. Lots of studies that say when you wake them up with an loud alert pager going off, it takes years off of their life with that sudden stress. So it's actually kind of a gentle voice, says, hey, you got a call. There's a small red light that lights up so they can see and get dressed. Head right down the hall here, down the stairs, and they're actually down in the ambulance bay pretty quick. Down here in Verona, we actually keep 2 ambulances. We also keep 2 ambulances up at the station in Fitchburg. At any one time, we have 1 ambulance in service at both stations. So we have two full-time paramedic ambulances, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, every day. The reason we have these backup ambulances is one, when they rotate out for maintenance, we need to be able to put an ambulance into service. Second thing, the ambulances here in Verona, we have one that is actually completely stocked at any one time. That if we had a mass casualty, we had an emergency, or we actually just had the personnel and we needed that 3rd ambulance, I could actually take 2 people or myself or the deputy chief. Both of us could hop in that ambulance and drive it out the door. So we actually have 3 ambulances ready to go at all times. That 4th ambulance, it's really just a monetary means of keeping that stocked with medications and the electronic equipment, the cardiac monitor price tag is pretty high. So that one we need to stock a little bit more up when we put that one in service. So what you're seeing in here, this is actually, we're going to call this our crew workspace. Gives them a space in the day where they can get away from the busyness of what's going on in the station, but gives them a place where they can work on patient information, which for obvious reasons we want kept fairly confidential. So in this space they'll do report writing. We have one of our computers actually set up with webcams so they can do online learning, be it many of our paramedics are actually going to school for continuing education to work on some other career and education opportunities. So they can do that. They can catch up on some of the training that they may have missed that we talked about earlier with some recorded trainings. Really thankful to the communities of our district. The Verona Fire Station alone here came with just about a $10.7 million price tag to put together everything you've seen today. We're just really truly blessed with the communities that we serve down here in Verona, up in Fitchburg. We're in 2 new stations that are less than 3 years old, and you've seen some of the phenomenal stuff we have, the paging systems, the individualized quarters, our training areas, our equipment. All of that has been given from our communities. They put a huge priority on their public safety, as they should, and our goal is to provide that service back to the best of our abilities.